iHeartRadio Broadway, driven by Mercedes-Benz. The best or nothing.
Hi guys, I'm Sam from Elvis Duran in the Morning Show and iHeartRadio Broadway, and I am very excited to be here today with an absolute master of basically anything he commits to, and that's Billy Porter. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. You're so sweet.
Okay, when I got the opportunity, SJ's like, how do you feel about Billy Porter? And I text back in caps. I'm like, get me. Figure this out, please. So first of all, how are you holding up in quarantine? Real life question.
You know, sans the terror that comes along with this, the anxiety, the uneasiness. You know, my husband and I rented a house out in Bellport. I am fully aware that I am inside of living some 1% shit right now.
Okay,
and
yeah.
I'm very, very grateful, and I want to make that clear.
Yeah.
You know, my heart bleeds right now. And with that said, you know, I've really been able to focus on a few things that I haven't been able to focus on ever in my life, which are self-care, balance, and boundaries.
Okay.
In all aspects and areas of my life.
Interesting. So it's kind of been like a forced perspective in a way.
Yeah, and very, very much at the exact right time. I've been waking up with the birds every morning at 5 a.m., writing until 10, which really fills me up. You know, I've never had the luxury of being able to do that because I'm a multi-hyphenate. So, you know.
You do everything. I don't know. I think you have more than 24 hours in one day.
But I've had to write while always doing something else. And so it's just been a blessing. On that front, I'm working on my memoir and a children's picture book that accompanies it, and writing a musical, and I finished a pilot for a series I'm developing, and you know, new music. I got new music coming out. So I'm blessed with being a freelance artist for the last 30 plus years. You know, so the machine has already been working in this way all my life. So
you just keep going.
Much different. You know, it's not much different. I just get to do these interviews in the house and not leave my house, which that's the difference.
Right.
But in terms of filling my days, I've always had to fill my days on my own. So that's not new.
This is not new. Well, I feel like, have you ever just looked at your rap sheet and read it and said, this is like, have you had an out-of-body experience? Because even hearing about you talking about the things coming up is what could be someone's entire career, and it's just part of what you're doing. It's so wild to me. Amazing. So with that, let's talk about a part of it. Let's talk about the new single, For What It's Worth.
Yes.
So it was originally recorded in 1966 by Buffalo Springfield and Stephen Stills. Yep. What happened to make you realize that you needed to record this single, and why was now the perfect time to release it?
Okay, so I am a product of the original civil rights movement, right? So I have that. Then I came out when I was 15 as gay, and we went straight to the front lines to fight for our lives during the AIDS crisis. So activism is in my DNA.
Yeah.
And now that I have this new platform, I knew that I wanted to come back into the mainstream music industry, but I wanted to make sure that my reentry was exactly what I want to say. And you know, I grew up with this thing. There was a genre that used to exist called protest music.
It was its own thing.
It was its own thing.
Yes.
And so my goal, knowing that this was going to be an election year, was to make sure that I used my platform, I used my activist artistry to speak truth to power, because that's what that's what I feel my responsibility as an artist is to do.
Yeah, and you picked a song that's, I think, essentially timeless.
Yeah.
That song is still so relevant, and it's incredible considering, you know, what year it was written. So when it comes to deconstructing and reconstructing that song, it's so legendary. I mean, how did you handle that with care? How did you make it your own, you know, while still preserving its integrity? And how was that process for you?
Well, first of all, I had an amazing producer, Zach Arnett, AKA Sir. He sort of put it together. My manager, Bill Butler, came up with the idea, and I'm a storyteller.
Yeah.
First and foremost. And so when I looked at the lyric, it's very observative, right? It's from an observer's point of view of what's happening.
Yeah.
It reminded me a lot of how I feel when I watch the news these days. You know, since the news has become a for-profit industry,
right?
I find that we sit in a very observative sort of stance where we kind of repeat and repeat and repeat what's going on.
Right.
And talk about the negative of what's going on with not a whole lot of guidance or talk towards how we fix it.
I know what you're saying.
Solve the problem.
It's in our face. This is what the issues are, but very seldom is there something constructive or helpful behind that. Yeah.
And which keeps us in a constant state of anxiety. And what I wanted to do was take this song that's inherently observative and maybe offer a release of what it can be, which is how we got to the vamp at the end. It talks about change, and it talks about change for good.
Yeah.
You know, this democratic experiment that America is in has had many, many, many highs and many, many, many devastating lows. We're in the middle of a low period right now. And I just wanted to create something that could possibly reignite the fire under some people who may feel discouraged, who may be complacent, who may be apathetic, and remind us that the power is in our hands. We, the people, are the ones that have the power to change what's going on in front of us.
And it's even more important now than ever, right? I feel myself becoming complacent, and that's never an adjective I used to describe myself before this time. But, you know, the truth is the truth. We're getting mentally loafing.
Now it's not the time for that.
You're right.
That's the whole point. The whole point is to fatigue us. The whole point is to scare us. The whole point is to make people think that their votes don't matter. But I'm here to tell you for certain, there's no amount of gerrymandering, there's no amount of voter suppression that can keep us from getting that monster out of the White House if we show up. If we show up, we will get that monster and all of his cronies out of there.
And is that the big takeaway from this? Like, whomever hasn't seen the lyric video
For
yet.
me?
Yeah. It is really a wide song.
You know, I'm
sorry, I think we're on a lag, so I keep cutting you off accidentally.
Okay.
So it is kind of a wide song. I like that the core of it, for anyone who's watching the lyric video or just listening to the song itself, is inspiring and is to evoke action and those feelings, those embers inside of us to do what you feel is toward the right thing. But it is not there's no narrow lyrics that say this is exactly what it is. Like, there's so much that song can be applied to improve our lives and ourselves for the better.
Yes, I'm glad you're getting that.
I love it.
The whole point.
That's so powerful. I mean, if anyone hasn't listened to the song yet, I strongly recommend you do. Right now it's streaming. It's playing on iHeartRadio, and you can find the lyric video on YouTube, which is also incredible. and it is powerful, and it is simple and clean.
Yes.
It's not convoluted, and it's still so powerful. And I think that's a very
Thank you.
difficult combination to maintain. And that's
I appreciate that.
well done.
Saying that.
So one last thing before I
Yeah.
let you go, what is it you're looking forward to most after our forced social distancing is over?
Seeing my friends and my people,
Yeah.
fellowshipping with my people.
Yeah.
I miss my friends. I miss my family.
I think it's beautiful. I miss hugs just
I miss hugs.
in general. Billy, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been an absolute honor. Thank you. And please listen to Billy's new single, For What It's Worth. This is
On all streaming platforms.
Yeah, Radio Broadway.
Bye.
Thank
Good
you,
to see
sweetie.
Thank you.
Take care.
iHeartRadio Broadway, driven by Mercedes-Benz. The best or nothing.